It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Welcome to Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com, the mobile app, as well as YouTube. He is Matt Citak. I'm Lance Medow with you for the next 60 minutes. It is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Phone number, 201-939-4513. You could also hit us up on social media using hashtag GiantsChat. I am at Lance Medow, one word, last name, M-E-D-O-W. He is at Matt Citak, one word as well. Clearly, some interesting news off the top of the show, which we will address, and a lot more that we'll delve into in terms of some takeaways from the Chiefs game as well. But according to multiple reports, and let me make this clear, the Giants have yet to make this news official, but I'm sure a lot of you have seen everything that has been posted out on social media. Many reports indicating that Jackson Dart will make his first career start this Sunday at home against the Los Angeles Chargers at 1 p.m. Eastern. So the Giants, according to reports, are making a quarterback change as Russell Wilson, no longer the starter after the first three games. Jackson Dart in. Brian Daboll addressed the media yesterday, Matt, but his next press conference is not until Wednesday, and we won't know anything official until, of course, Daboll speaks to the media. But I think if you maybe read in between the lines and connect the dots, when he did speak with reporters the other day, and he was asked on multiple occasions, what's the plan in terms of the starting quarterback, said that they're reviewing everything. He left it general, open-ended with respect to personnel, and that, once again, a little bit different, Matt, than maybe his response in the first 2 weeks. So that perhaps was opening the door a little bit more than we had seen previously, that there's a chance there could have been a change under center.
Yeah, look, after the season opener, right after the game when Coach Daboll was speaking, the beat reporters basically asked him, you know, are you considering making a change? And right after that first game, he did the same sort of thing that he did this past Sunday night, which is he kind of left the door a little open a little bit. But then when he spoke to the media the very next day, so this is Monday after week one, he definitively said, you know, Russ is our starter. Now, fast forward 2 weeks, Coach Daboll did the same sort of thing after the game Sunday night, which is normal. But then yesterday, that was as you mentioned, that was the sort of eye-opening remarks where he was given several opportunities to, you know, definitively say, like, yes, Russell Wilson will be our starting quarterback this week, or no, Jackson Dart will be. He did not close. He left the door open, as you mentioned. He did not give any sort of definitive answer, and obviously that led to a lot of speculation, like, oh, maybe the Giants are considering making this change. So, yeah, I would say based on Coach's remarks yesterday, you could say that the writing may have been on the wall a little bit. Obviously, again, nothing is confirmed. We will hear from Coach in about, I guess, 24 hours from right about now, and he will give us, you know, more definitive answers to these questions. But, yeah, according to reports, it sounds like the Jackson Dart era begins.
And you could say this is, I guess, inevitable when it comes to the National Football League. We've seen this trend play out when teams struggle record-wise early in the season and a first-round pick comes in. The quarterback, who's the younger of the two, tends to get on the field sooner rather than later. And we talked about a potential timeline, and even Brian Daboll was asked, and the approach was patience, developing, that he's got individual steps that he needs to check off. And he even gave a similar answer the other day when he was asked about Jackson Dart and how confident are you, in saying, hey, he's going through the motions, and in practice we have him run the scout team and this and that. And things sometimes get accelerated because of what develops based on the results on the field and so forth. I mean, we could go through so many other examples, Matt, that we've done in NFL history ever since the Giants drafted Jackson Dart. And there are many different young quarterbacks that have started immediately. There are others that got in midseason. There are some that waited till year 2 and year 3. And Mahomes has come up, coincidentally, because he was here the other night, and you had Kafka, who was with him in Kansas City, and he got in the very last game of his rookie season and then took over for Alex Smith the following year after they moved him to Washington. So everybody's not cut from the same cloth. There's a different pathway. But I thought Darius Slayton, who spoke with reporters gave some really good perspective the other day. And he had answered similarly, Matt, about a few weeks ago. But he was asked about a potential quarterback change and supporting Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart. And he said, listen, I was here when Daniel Jones took over. They were both rookies in 2019. And there's going to be a difference between 1 week between Daniel Jones, right, and Jackson Dart. Jones was thrown in to the fire in week 3 against the Bucs when Pat Shurmur was the head coach, replaced Eli Manning. So Dart, week 4. And he had looked back over the years since and has reflected, and he admitted, he said, I thought Daniel was sort of rushed onto the field and didn't have time to digest being a starter. Now, once again, Darius lived it. He experienced it. And that doesn't mean that every quarterback, once again, is the same, but you don't hear players after a year or two review that and maybe think through that lens. So I just thought it was interesting if Darius, he didn't say if he could go back and do it again, but he just felt that Daniel wasn't given maybe a little bit more wiggle room and time to go through the motions compared to maybe some other younger quarterbacks who have entered the league over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, every quarterback is different. We have seen some examples of rookie quarterbacks coming in week 1 and having tremendous success.
Cam Warren, has come in right from the start.
Cam Warren. Last year, Jaden Daniels obviously came in, took the league by storm, led the Washington to the NFC Championship as a rookie. CJ Stroud a couple of years ago did it. So there are examples of guys coming in and immediately finding success. Now, I thought it was interesting. I'm glad you brought up the Darius in the 2019 season because, for some people that are saying, I can't believe they're going away from Russell Wilson so quickly. I just want to remind people that in 2019, the Giants went away from Eli Manning, the greatest quarterback to play for this franchise, after 2 games for a rookie quarterback. So it's not like this is like such a unheard of decision here. Like, it's been done before, and the last time the Giants drafted a quarterback in the first round of the draft, we saw this very similar situation play out, and that was with an all-time franchise legend, not a veteran quarterback who obviously is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, but he signed a 1-year deal earlier this offseason. It's not like he's been here for over a decade like Eli was. So it doesn't, if Brian Daboll confirms this news tomorrow, I don't think it's like so crazy and unheard of to make this decision. Clearly, if this is the decision that the coaching staff has made, it's because they believe that Jackson Dart gives them the best chance to win. And quite frankly, looking at how he performed in the preseason, that might have changed the timeline that the coaching staff had in mind for getting Jackson Dart into game action. I'm sure when they went into training camp, they might have said, we want to be patient with him, let him take time to develop, get used to like the speed of the NFL. But then he came and lit up in the preseason. He had 3 tremendous performances, and that probably opened the eyes of the coaching staff. Like, maybe he's further along than we maybe thought he would have been at this time, when we drafted him or when we signed Russ back in March. So, yeah, if this turns out, if Coach Daboll confirms this tomorrow, I think it's an exciting time. Obviously, it's a tough matchup with the Chargers defense.
Sure. Yeah,
it's a
really
good
good defense. Yeah.
But then again, you look at the Giants' schedule, there really is no soft landing spot to put a rookie quarterback in for his first start. I mean, next week, the Giants are in New Orleans, which New Orleans, not that talented of a team, but any team going to the Superdome to play, that is a very tough environment to play in. And then you have a stretch of Eagles, Broncos, Eagles. So there really was no soft landing spot to put him in. I mean, I guess in an absolute ideal world, the softest landing spot may have been after the bye, but because the Giants have such a late bye, you don't want to wait until December to see what Jackson Dart can do. So,
well, especially with the team 0-3 and the level of urgency, at least from a standings perspective, if you're going to look for a spark, you're going to do it sooner rather than later. But I'm in wholehearted agreement with you. You're going to see Vic Fangio, who is a solid veteran defensive coordinator, twice in the span of 3 weeks. And then in between that, the Denver Broncos, who had the best defense last season, maybe have struggled a little bit in some higher scoring games, but Vance Joseph is also another experienced former head coach who coincidentally, like Fangio, was in Denver, and now he's back as the defensive coordinator. So it's not going to get any easier. You're going to see Green Bay at some point, the Lions. it is what it is when it comes to the NFL. I would say even when you look at the record of teams like the Saints, their defensive coordinator and their unit has a lot of veterans on that side of the ball who I'm sure are going to be foaming at the mouth going up against the rookie quarterback who at that point will be making his second career start. So there is no ideal formula for putting this timeline into place. Things don't necessarily always go according to plan. Just like life, the NFL, it evolves week to week. I think we have enough evidence of that. Heck, let's go beyond Daniel Jones, Matt, okay? You mentioned that was the last example. Eli, who Daniel Jones replaced, okay, was a rookie in 2004. And Tom Coughlin, actually, you could argue, made an unpopular decision that season because the Giants were 5-4. They had a winning record with Kurt Warner as their starting quarterback. And at that point, he decided, I'm going to now switch gears to the rookie quarterback. And things didn't go smoothly record-wise. I mean, the team didn't make the playoffs that year, didn't finish with a winning record, but Tom felt at that point they needed to make a change and they needed to accelerate getting Eli on the field. So you've seen teams with winning records make the change, and we've seen a team with a losing record, and both under the umbrella of this franchise. So you really don't have to look outside the Giants organization in terms of the history of various different pathways for rookie quarterbacks. I think as you were hitting on, I think based on how Jackson Dart performed in the preseason and how quickly he seemed to get a feel for the offense and the rapport he built with his teammates, gave Brian Dable and the coaching staff the confidence that maybe we can get him on the field sooner rather than later. But I'm going to go back to what Darius Slayton had to say. There's a distinct difference between the preseason and the regular season.
For sure.
Okay? It is a huge spectrum that you're talking about. And just because certain flashes and things went smoothly before the season started doesn't mean it's going to roll over. But Dart offers the Giants a bit of newness and something different also for the Chargers to have to account for, right? Because there's a lot of film out there of Russell Wilson.
Yep.
3 games specifically. A lot of historical matchups that Harbaugh and his staff have well-documented film. Dart, you have a few preseason games, as you noted, Matt, but it's a little bit of a land of the unknown, and that always adds a bit of intrigue, I guess, to a matchup, and perhaps, something that the Giants can throw in an opponent that they were not afforded in the first 3 games.
Yeah, and I think, something that people might be forgetting now, we spent all offseason, or at least I did, all offseason, training camp, even the preseason, saying that based on how the last 2 seasons have gone for the Giants, I don't know how many people necessarily expected the Giants to come in this year and, be Super Bowl contenders. Realistically, we all want and still want the team to make a jump, a step in the right direction. And I said for months, the most important thing to have Giants fans ending the season and this organization ending the season feeling like we are going in the right direction is Jackson Dart's development. So the fact, if Jackson Dart is out there this week, it clearly means that the coaching staff feels that he is ready to go out there. This isn't some desperation play, just throw the rookie out there. No, they think that Jackson Dart gives them the best chance to win the game on Sunday and every Sunday moving forward. No decision would be made to put him out there if he was not ready just to, as like a desperation thing, save the season. No, they think that he gives them the best chance to win. And, obviously we'll see how he performs. He's got, 14 games left now to see what he can do. But his development has always been the biggest, the number one priority for the Giants this season, at least in my opinion. It has always been, how does Jackson Dart develop as a rookie? If we end the season with, feeling like we are set at quarterback for the next decade plus, Jackson Dart is our guy. And I said this months ago, I don't care if we only win a couple of games. Like, that is what would leave us feeling like we are heading in the right direction, that we figured out a long-term solution to the most important position in all of sports. So now we're going to see, what the rookie can do. But clearly the coaching staff has a ton of confidence in him. Otherwise, they would not be putting him out there in week 4.
Well, they also, I'm sure, feel, and this is just my own personal opinion, that at this point, given the struggles of the offense, that perhaps Dart's skill set And once again, that newness factor that I was talking about, meaning not documented on film, could provide perhaps a bit of a spark. But once again, tough defenses right out of the gate that he's going to have to solve. And I think the other thing that's important to understand, and I brought this up, Matt, on last Tuesday's show after the Cowboys game, that what they put forth on offense was a great development, right? Russell Wilson throwing for 450 yards, explosive plays, but don't expect that to now all of a sudden roll over to the Chiefs when Steve Spagnuolo runs a completely different defense than Matt Eberflus and has completely different personnel than what the Dallas secondary has to offer. And what happened? It was a big 180. So this idea that if you show flashes one week, that all of a sudden it could be easily pushing a button and it's going to come out the same way the following game. The NFL just doesn't operate. It doesn't work like that. And you can even look at other offenses that I could go through in the NFL this season. For example, the Minnesota Vikings looked a lot better this week against the Bengals than they did the previous week against the Atlanta Falcons. And I know it was a different quarterback with Carson Wentz, but Wentz didn't throw for 300 yards. They just looked a better team, and they went up against a team with a backup quarterback, and their defense had multiple takeaways. So the dynamics can flip-flop immensely from one week to another. And if you go back to Daniel Jones, he had that great game against the Bucs, right? In 2019, and he had that rushing touchdown to help propel the Giants to victory. And I thought Daniel Jones had a really good rookie year overall in comparison to the rest of his tenure, but every other game wasn't like that. They played the Vikings shortly after the Bucs, and Minnesota made it difficult. So I think anybody going into this, at least from a fan perspective, has to understand Dart's going to get on-field experience, which, to your point, is going to be great, especially with him being hopefully the plan in the long run. But he's a rookie quarterback, and there's a lot he hasn't seen, and there's a lot he has to learn on the fly now, and it's going to come 10 times faster than what the preseason and what practice those settings have to offer. And that's important to at least designate when you at least have a conversation of what realistically one man under center can do, I think, for the state of a team's offense is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and look, week 2, Russell Wilson against Dallas, there's no one's going to sit here and say that he was not fantastic in that game. But the Dallas Cowboys might have one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
That's context, yeah.
Take Micah Parsons out. They're currently down Deron Bland. Like, there's just not a ton of talent on that Cowboys defense. Now, Russell Wilson, we all know going into the season, his biggest strength, and it has been for the last, recent years, has been the deep ball, and which we saw it against the Cowboys. The deep pass was fantastic. This past Sunday night against the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo, who I think we both agree, one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. He's obviously been the most successful defensive coordinator in NFL history in terms of Super Bowl championships. He took away the deep ball. The Chiefs ran split safety coverage, nearly 80% of Russ's dropbacks. That is the highest rate that any team has run it this season. And since Steve Spagnuolo took over as the Chiefs defensive coordinator, which was, I believe, was 2019, the third highest rate that he's run it in any game in a 6-7 season stretch. So Steve Spagnuolo, again, put a defense out there knowing we're going to take away Russ's best attribute, the deep pass. We're not going to let him beat us with the deep ball, which we saw. Russ did not complete a single deep pass on Sunday night. And it wasn't because he didn't try. He did. He had, I think it was 6 attempts, none of which were completed. So when the defense does that to you, you got to just take what they're giving you. And at least this past Sunday night, we didn't really see Russell Wilson do that. And clearly that is, and it's a similar defensive strategy that we saw the Commanders run in week 1. The Commanders said, we're not going to let Russ beat us with the deep ball. The Cowboys, I don't know what they were doing in week 2, but they allowed
issues,
that to happen.
Major issues. Yeah.
Clearly, the Giants coaching staff believes that Jackson Dart is going to be more capable of taking what the defense gives him, because obviously Jackson can throw the deep ball, but his game doesn't center around connecting on those deep passes like Russell Wilson's kind of does at this point of his illustrious NFL career. They clearly believe that Jackson Dart will be more capable of taking what the defense gives him, hitting on some of those more short, intermediate routes, screen passes, which that's what you want to see your quarterback do. You got to take what the defense is giving you. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are coming off a Super Bowl. week 1, their passing game was non-existent because the Cowboys sold out to take away A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So what did they do? They played the short game. They leaned on the run game. Jalen Hurts had 14 rush attempts, and they won the game. That's what you need to do in order to win games. You got to take what the defense is giving you. And at least this past Sunday night, it just felt a little bit like the deep ball was trying to get forced when the Chiefs were playing a defense that was going to make it very, very difficult to be successful on the deep ball.
Oh, and that led to the 2 interceptions. And when you only score 9 points, every possession is so important that when you lose 2, it does add up, regardless of whether or not they had their kicker accessible. But I think the other thing to watch with Jackson Dart now is red zone efficiency, or the lack thereof, which it has been. They're 2 for 10, 20%. I mean, this is basic math here on the season. That has to change, Matt. Whether it's Russell Wilson, whether it's Jackson Dart, whether it's Jameis Winston, it really makes no difference. That number has to dramatically improve because, number one, that coincides with your point total. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out you finish in the red zone, you're going to score more points. But also, it opens up so many other opportunities for your team. For example, you're not putting as much pressure on your defense when you're finishing in the red zone. That's number one. And, you're not turning it over on downs to maybe give the opposition a position to do something aggressive or dig deep into their bag of tricks. So red zone efficiency, I would say, hits on so many other facets of a team. And, that's the one area that Jackson Dart is going to have to tackle with the rest of the offense, of course, to improve against a really good Chargers defense that is led by Jesse Minter, who came over with Harbaugh from Michigan. And I know we're going to get into the Chargers as the week progresses, but, I mean, if you just look at their first 3 games, and coincidentally, they've played all division rivals, and they're 3-0. They held the Chiefs to 21, the Raiders only scored 9, and the Broncos 20. So, I mean, just based on point tally, and they're starting to run the football much more effectively with Hampton, who's now going to be their number 1 back, with Najee Harris being out for the season with a torn Achilles, and Justin Herbert, we know, is an extremely polished quarterback. So this is going to be quite the challenge, but he'll make his debut, I think also, interestingly, at home in front of the crowd at MetLife Stadium. And I think that, from a confidence standpoint, doesn't hurt. That whatever he's going to put out there, he's going to have the home base behind him. So I'm not saying that that was the end-all, be-all reason, but I'm sure that maybe that was taken a little bit into consideration, that when and if we choose to make this decision, perhaps a little bit more comfortable him doing it in Jersey as opposed to on the road in New Orleans or wherever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, again, playing in the Superdome is one of the toughest away stadiums to play.
Noise-wise.
Noise-wise. And then the following week, do you really want Jackson Dart's NFL debut to be against Vic Fangio and the Eagles? And then the week after, Broncos? Again, there was no soft landing spot, so I understand the decision.
Short week, by the way. I didn't mean to interrupt you. The Eagles game. It's a Thursday game, too. Another reason why that would have been much more challenging.
That, too. And look, with everything that we've said, by no means are we saying that, all of the offensive struggles falls on Russell Wilson's shoulders.
No, not at all.
That is so clearly not the case. But we're 3 games into the season, and 2 of the 3 games, the Giants have finished with single-digit points. That's just unacceptable for any NFL team would say that obviously is unacceptable. You're not going to win games scoring single-digit points. So this is, again, the coaching staff feels like he's ready, but B, this is just could be a spark plug. Clearly the coaching staff is looking for something to get this offensive going because there are talented players on the roster. It's not like a lack of talent. It's just putting it, and Coach Dable, everyone has said this, is putting everything together. And I know this is like a buzzword saying you need to play complementary football, but it really is true. The teams that win the most games play well on all 3 phases. And the defense for the Giants has been playing pretty well. It hasn't been perfect by any means, but they have not been, the reason that the Giants have started 0-3. They have performed outside of the Cowboys game, which obviously that 40 points it's tough to win a game giving up 40 points. But the other 2 games, the defense played pretty well.
Kept them in the games.
The offense, this is looking for something to spark the offense, to get it going. Because, again, Malik Neighbors is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. You have complementary receivers in Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton that are very solid, number 2 and number 3 receivers. Theo Johnson, a tight end who there was so much positivity and buzz about coming into the season. And now Cam Skadaboo, a running back who just showed last week with somewhat limited touches how much of a weapon he can be on offense. So hopefully adding Jackson Dart under center to those group of guys, not to mention Andrew Thomas now back, hopefully sees more snaps this coming week than he did last week. Obviously, he was on a snap count this past week. Hopefully, we don't know yet, but hopefully he is at least able to play more, if not a full game yet, hopefully more. But this move is clearly trying to find a way to get the offense going. And based on what we saw in the preseason, I totally get it. I mean, Jackson Dart, again, as you mentioned, in the preseason, the opponent, everyone plays more vanilla defenses.
No game planning.
It is very, very different from the regular season. But he did check all the boxes in those preseason opportunities. So hopefully this is the spark plug that the Giants offense needed to really get going and get the season back on track.
I just think it's going to be important for him to also, from an emotional standpoint, a mental standpoint, not feel as if he's got to go above and beyond. Sometimes rookie quarterbacks, especially, the one thing we saw in the preseason is him having trouble sliding. He's going to now have to all of a sudden embrace the fact that I'll take a 3-yard run as opposed to try to force a 6-yard run, because that's going to be the biggest difference in terms of durability and health moving forward for hopefully what will be a lengthy career for him. All right, we're going to open up the phone lines as we move forward here. In case you're just tuning in, according to multiple reports, the Giants are making a quarterback change. Jackson Dart will be the starting quarterback. His first career start this Sunday at home against the Chargers. Russell Wilson will head to the bench. Matt Citak, Lance Medow with you here on Giants.com. Big Blue Kickoff Live. And we're going to open up the phone lines at 201-939-4513. You can also hit us up on social media. We're monitoring that as well. Hashtag Giants Chat. He's at Matt Citak, one word. I'm at Lance Medow, one word, last name Medow. But let's kick off the festivities here on Tuesday's edition of the program. And we check in with John in Florida. John, welcome aboard. What do you got for us?
Hey, guys. I've been listening to your program quite a bit. I called once last year. The quarterback is the least of our problems. The New York Giants have a systemic administrative problems. I grew up in Jersey, 15 minutes from that stadium. I've been an educator for 32 years. I'm retired now. I was a high school principal. I had to hire staff. I ran a high school of 1,000 students and 100 staff members. I have to tell you, every time that I listen to Coach Stable, if I were interviewing him to teach in my school, he wouldn't cut it. I call him SAC. Smug, arrogant, and condescending. That's my opinion. I used to be able to tell in 15 minutes whether someone was going to be a successful teacher or coach. I made one mistake in 13 years. We've made dumber, and dumbest mistakes ever since Joe Shane took over. I'm sorry. Letting Barkley go, and I know they're going to say, oh, geez, they couldn't make a deal. I would have given them half the team. You had to do everything to keep that player. Big mistake. The contract to Daniel Jones, dumber mistake. Then you bring in Russell. Then you bring in interception, Mr. Winston. He'd throw the ball to anybody. If Paul Dottino was on the sideline, he'd probably
let me just jump in here, John. First of all, I mean, Jameis has yet to play. So, you can tell me all you want about his baggage. They gave him a 2-year contract to be an insurance quarterback, which he's going to remain that way. And the deal financially makes a lot of sense, because if you look at what backup quarterbacks make compared to what Jameis is making, it's a real logical, smart move, I would argue.
No, you had a backup quarterback. His name was Tommy DeVito. I'm sorry. Who's the last quarterback to win 3 games in a row for the New York Giants?
Well, I mean, that's a small sample size. In fairness, John, you're judging it based on a very small sample size. And, I mean, Tommy DeVito, once again, had his opportunity, and the offense didn't necessarily light up the scoreboard. You knew they were going to revamp and go in a different direction based on the results of a year ago. I mean, I don't think that's a surprising development when you evaluate everything.
Who's the only one? We've only won 2 primetime games out of 23 night games. DeVito's the only one that won one. I guess it was Manning that won the other one.
Well, the team won or lost it, not a quarterback. I mean, listen, in fairness, you said there are bigger issues than the quarterback, and now you're having a conversation about the backup quarterback of all positions, John. I mean, let's be realistic here.
Third string quarterback.
Yeah, third string, excuse me. I mean, that's where you want to go. Of all the topics and all the facets of a roster, your beef is with the third string quarterback and the decision making?
What I'm saying is you could have saved $8 million and had Mr. DeVito as a backup next year. You would have had two really good young quarterbacks. And when John Mara stood there and said, I won't be able to sleep at night if he goes to the Eagles, he should have fired him right there.
Well, I mean, once again, we could cry over past situations till we're blue in the face. I really don't think it's going to do much of anything, John. I appreciate the phone call. I mean, I think we've revisited the Saquon Barkley topic. We don't need to do it all over again. I think another important element here, and if you want to weigh in, Matt, on this is, Barkley has benefited immensely from the personnel around him in Philadelphia. And if he were to stay here, to just assume that level of success would be duplicated, I think would be a little naive and unrealistic. Just like you move a quarterback to another environment, for example, what Daniel Jones is doing in the first 3 games, when you change things around the quarterback and personnel, it's going to have an effect on an individual player. So you can't just assume that you roll it back with the Giants and that those results are going to be the same.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have talked about this for 9 months now since the end of last season. Like, Saquon Barkley had a absolutely tremendous season last year. Obviously helped win the Super Bowl for the Eagles, playing behind the best offensive line in the NFL. And we saw Saquon for 6 years here playing behind not the greatest offensive lines, and he had some success. His rookie year was fantastic, but the last 5 years, he wasn't able to do what he did in Philly because he didn't have that playing behind that offensive line, playing with the dual threat of Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Like, that played a very big part in Saquon having the tremendous season that he had. And that's not taking anything away from him. He's a fantastic running back and one of the best running backs in the NFL. But just to say the Giants should have re-signed him because he would have done the same thing here that's just a naive mindset to have. And then about Tommy DeVito, I mean, we all loved Tommy. Tommy was great. And he did win some football games for this team over the last couple of years. But when the Giants waived him at the end of training camp, there was one team across the entire NFL that put a waiver claim in for him, the Patriots, where he is now, where he is serving as their emergency third quarterback on game days. So to be so up in arms about bringing in an established veteran quarterback who's been in the NFL for a decade, who you signed him to a 2-year deal with the mindset of he's probably going to be Jackson Dart's backup in 2026, when you want a veteran experienced guy who has a lot of playing experience under his belt, to be so up in arms about that decision, that kind of baffles me. Look, we love Tommy. Tommy was great when he was here, but to get so worked up about that I don't really fully understand.
Well, I mean, I'll go back to, Matt, the Giants averaged under 20 points a game when Tommy DeVito was the starting quarterback. Listen, I've got nothing against Tommy, and hopefully, he is able to continue to carve out a career. But if you were to say the Giants averaged 25 points a game with Tommy DeVito at the controls, maybe we have something to talk about. But the results have been pretty much the same no matter who has been under center over the last few seasons. And the goal was to upgrade that by bringing in much more experienced, polished quarterbacks. So to criticize that of all things would be, to me, the last thing on the list in terms of issues that they need to fix. And as you mentioned, the logic was Russell Wilson's on a 1-year deal, but we're going to bring in Jameis because he's on a 2-year contract, which actually doesn't stress out the salary cap. And Jameis, I'm sure, could have went elsewhere, by the way, and made a lot more money because of the demand and importance of backup quarterbacks. Oh, by the way, Matt, think about how many guys have gone down already this season. Joe Burrow, J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, what Marcus Mariota did for Washington this past weekend. Veteran quarterback. That's been the theme across the board. So they knew Jameis could still be around when you make the transition to Jackson, whether it be this year or the start of next season. So that hasn't changed, regardless of these reports that Dart is going to be the quarterback. That does not impact at all what the quarterback room can look like in 2026.
Yeah, and I need to stress how important it is to have experience in your quarterback room. Not only because if your starter gets hurt, obviously the backup is next up, but Jackson Dart is 22 years old. He is a rookie. He now has and all 3 or even 4 going back to the training camp with Tommy DeVito, all the quarterbacks spoke about how close knit the quarterback room was and how they would all like bounce ideas off each other, say like what one person saw on film, point it out, help the other ones out. You have a rookie quarterback. And again, no offense at all to Tommy DeVito, but Jameis Winston has so much more experience under his belt than Tommy DeVito, has seen so much more in the NFL than Tommy DeVito has. Was the backup to Drew Brees, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. If you don't think that has an effect on your rookie quarterback's development and could potentially benefit him over an undrafted rookie who's been in the league for this is his 3rd season and has won a handful of games, but has only been here, I don't know what to tell you. Like, there is clearly more than just what Jameis brings on the field that went behind the signing to bring him in to mentor Jackson Dart. And Jackson has spoken at length multiple times since the start of training camp about how important Russ and Jameis have both been for his early development. And that's only going to get more and more important now that he is going to be QB1 moving forward, because he's going to see things that he's never seen before, that both Jameis and Russ have seen a lot of because they've been in the league for over a decade now. So you need to have experience in your quarterback room. You don't want to have 3 guys on rookie contracts in your quarterback room. That's not the recipe for a good experienced quarterback room. It's just not.
Now, Tommy did know the system, so there was value in that, but Jameis has started 87 games. Tommy DeVito has started 8. And I'll let our listeners and viewers do the math. I think there's quite a disparity between both of those. As you are watching and listening to Big Blue Kickoff live here from our Giants podcast studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health, keep getting better. Lance Medow, Matt Citak with you. Let's head back to the phone lines. We check in with David in North Carolina. David, welcome aboard. What do you got for us?
Oh, boy. Well, sorry, gentlemen. Don't mean to piggyback off that last caller, and maybe I can make a little bit better argument than that gentleman did. No offense. Going to try to do this quickly because I know people are passionate about what's going on right now. Let me read off these rankings for you and take a guess who the mysterious person is. 29th in the league, 31st in the league, 20th in the league, 32nd in the league, 20th in the league, 30th in the league, and 31st in the league in offense.
Are you talking about a team or an individual quarterback with those rankings?
An individual coordinator.
An individual coordinator with respect to this season through the first 3 games?
No, sir. Those are various seasons that he was the offensive coordinator.
Well, I mean, my guess is since this is a Giants show, we're probably going to wind up with somebody on the Giants coaching staff, is my guess.
Ding, 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 Mr. Brian Daboll. Yes, that is correct. So outside of the years of Josh Allen, this supposedly offensive guru that, I mean, let's face it, me, Wilson, Charlie in Maine, and with a little help of Coach Marvin could have developed Josh Allen. This guy is not an offensive guru. What do we hang our hat on? What would you say is something that the Brian Daboll offense does really well? It certainly doesn't run the ball well. It certainly doesn't establish the run well. Okay, we know he's more of a pass-oriented coach. You mean to tell me, I don't care what defense Steve Spagnuolo was employing, you mean to tell me you can't run a bubble screen or some kind of drag route to get Malik Neighbors the ball? I'm not talking about a 10-catch, 250-yard performance. This guy couldn't coordinate an offense to score 20 points more than once a season if he wanted to. It's a joke. And I know John Mara doesn't listen to the show, but let me give another little inside secret to Giants fans. If you think the quarterback is going to solve it, and you guys just laid it out perfectly with the various quarterbacks that can't score more than 10 points a game, it's not going to happen. There's a few guys that the tide raises all the boats, right? Off the top of my head, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are elite quarterbacks, though, you're naming, David, and that's why Matt and I earlier in the show.
Personnel changes.
Sure.
The personnel changes, and those guys can elevate the team to what, 8, 9, 10 wins or more.
Well,
if the Giants are expecting to land that type of quarterback and it changed the face of the franchise, not only is it hard to draft a franchise quarterback, it's 10 times harder to draft a quarterback of that caliber. And that's what it seems like we're waiting on, is this magical character to come in here and fix everything. I can't believe John Mara is going to let Brian Daboll get his hands on Jackson Dart and ruin him like he's ruined everything else when it comes. Maybe Brian Daboll is a great quarterback coach. He's not an offensive coordinator, and he's certainly not a head coach.
All right, David.
The team was out of shape in Dallas. Instead of running a training camp, we have Club Med Daboll. You know, it's obvious this team's not prepared to play on Sunday, and I don't know what else we got to see it.
All right, David, we'll let you go on that note. Appreciate the phone call. I think Matt and I made it very clear off the top of the show, in case you're just tuning in, that you have to be realistic that Jackson Dart is not putting on a cape, and he's not waving a magic wand, and he's going to fix everything on offense. I think that would be a naive perspective. I think what we were getting at is the mindset is they have seen enough at this point. They're confident that what he has shown progression-wise in the preseason and behind closed doors in the film room gives them confidence that they can put him on the field, he can operate this system, and that they can get a better look at him within the setting of the regular season, which is a little bit sooner than probably everybody else had anticipated. But I think that's more of the logic. I mean, the idea that now the Giants offense is going to score 30 points a game, I don't think anybody realistically is anticipating that, Matt. I think it's more of, can Dart provide something that is different from Russell Wilson, and can they help him grow now in a regular season setting? That's what it comes down to. And, I mean, as far as the point about, Daboll and getting his hands on a quarterback, I mean, Daboll and Joe Shane, they put the time and effort in the scouting team to invest in Jackson Dart and bring him in. So, I mean, it is logical that they would then want to see something come to fruition on the football field under those circumstances.
Yeah, look, no one is expecting Jackson Dart to step onto the field Sunday and all of a sudden play like MVP Josh Allen. No one is expecting that. I mean, first of all, just look at what Josh Allen did in his rookie year compared to what he's doing now. It's night and day different.
Yeah, he had no offensive line, by the way, his rookie year.
Yeah, no one's expecting Jackson Dart to do that. But clearly the coaching staff feels like Jackson Dart is more capable of running the offense that the Giants want to run on a weekly basis than Russell Wilson. Let's not forget, Russell Wilson obviously has had a tremendous career, still is a great deep ball passer, but at 36-year-old, despite his little bit of running that he has done, he's not exactly a mobile quarterback. He has rushed a little bit through the first 3 games, no doubt about it, but I don't think anyone's going to argue that Jackson Dart is a much more mobile quarterback than Russell Wilson. All you got to do is go back, and I'm cautious making this comparison, but I'm just saying 2022 and Brian Daboll's first season here, Daniel Jones, while his numbers did not light up the box score, ran the offense so efficiently. He had the lowest interception percentage in the NFL. Yes, he only threw 14 touchdown passes, but he also rushed for 700 yards and another 7 touchdowns. That sort of offense with maybe a little bit more explosiveness, because I think obviously the coaching staff must have confidence in Jackson Dart's ability to throw the ball and to hit his receivers accurately. But that, I feel like, is the sort of offense that the coaching staff is probably looking to try to remake now with Jackson Dart under center, which you couldn't really do with Russell Wilson because he doesn't offer that rushing threat like Daniel Jones did in 2022. Jackson Dart, on the other hand, has already shown he is very capable of running with the football, maybe even a little too much where, obviously we want him to obviously slide and not take so many hits. But we kind of said the same thing with Daniel Jones rushing a couple of years ago where he was doing the same sort of thing. We wanted him to get down. So I think this move is because they think that Jackson Dart has a better chance of running the offense that the coaching staff wants to run and more efficiently than Russell Wilson has. Because, I mean, we've seen Jackson Dart go out there for a couple of plays in the last 2 games, all of which were read options.
Yep.
That's not something you can really do, at least not that much, with Russell Wilson. They did it a little.
They did it a little.
bit,
Yeah, I mean, listen,
for
he's
sure,
not a
little
statue.
bit.
I agree with you. I think Dart's more athletic at this stage in his career, and I think offers them a little bit more athleticism. And perhaps, once again, going back to the red zone, Matt, the combination of Dart and Cam Scatterbo, now that Tyrone Tracy is dealing with a shoulder injury, does that maybe keep defenses guessing a little bit more because they have to anticipate? I mean, if you go back to that red zone series against the Chiefs, they had run a run play with Russell Wilson, and, Kansas City wasn't caught off guard, and then a lot of the other throws were in the back of the end zone. So maybe that perhaps is a facet that they could tap into. But I guess I would just be a little bit concerned about, you were throwing out 700 rushing yards. I don't know if you want to expose Dart, and I'm not saying you were insinuating that.
For sure.
But you run him the amount of times it's going to take to get 700 rushing yards, he's going to be absorbing a lot of hits. Remember, Jones wasn't a rookie that year.
For
when
100%,
he was at least in
sure.
the league for a few seasons. A little bit different.
No,
So.
definitely different. I that's why I said I hesitate to even make this comparison. But I just meant the style of the offense in 2022.
No, and that I get. Sure.
That I think is what they would like to get closer to now. While the last 3 weeks, the offense was kind of relying just almost solely on the deep ball. And obviously it worked in Dallas, but the other two games when opposing defenses schemed to take away the deep ball, the offense had a lot of trouble moving the ball up and down the field. And especially, then when you got close to the end zone, obviously the deep ball, when you get into the red zone, no longer applicable there, but they weren't punching the ball into the end zone. As you mentioned before, the Giants are 2 for 10 in the red zone. That's not going to cut it for any team. Any team. That's obviously unacceptable. That probably played a part in making this change because, as you mentioned, Jackson Dart is more capable of doing that read option and taking the ball himself, running it in. And I'd feel a little, despite him being a rookie, as you mentioned, he's just more athletic than Russell Wilson is, with Russell Wilson at the stage of his career that he is at right now at 36 years old. Jackson Dart offers that rushing threat. And again, I'm not saying I want him rushing, 200 times over the next 14 games, but I think it's pretty clear that there will be some design runs schemed for Jackson Dart. And in the preseason, we saw him do it, and he was picking up huge chunks of yards almost every time he ran with the ball.
Sure. And I think he also showed a capacity to get rid of the football very quickly, and maybe that will create opportunities to get some of their playmakers out in open space to have yardage after the catch as opposed to waiting for the big bombs to develop down the field, which is more of Russell Wilson's style. That's something else to at least take into consideration. Let's head back to the lines. We got Joey in California. Joey, welcome aboard. What do you got for us?
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Doing all right. What's on your mind?
Well, I was hoping to talk about the Giants' struggles at MetLife Stadium, but then the news broke this morning, so had to change the topic. But this is my concern with Jackson Dart getting the nod after 3 games this year. Look, I know Russell had a bad game Sunday night, but I don't think that was warranted to say we want Dart from the fans. But, the thing that gets me is that we're repeating the same habit we had with Daniel Jones. And, that's my biggest concern with the Giants is that they got a bad habit of repeating the bad parts of history in their organization, and I just don't think this was a good idea to put Dart in on this situation. And, well, you guys talked about it. He's got, these upcoming opponents, and I just am wondering, is this really a coaching decision, or is this pressure from the head of the organization who says, hey, look, we've had great success with Charlie Connolly from Ole Miss. We've had great success with Eli Manning from Ole Miss.
Well, I don't know if it.
Dart.
I mean, I understand the track record of the track. I don't think that they said, well, when we've utilized Ole Miss quarterbacks before, we've had good results. I can assure you, Joey, that I don't think that was a big part of it. And we'll let you go on that note. We want to try to squeeze in as many callers as possible here for the remainder of the show. I think when I said at the top of the show that, quarterbacks have taken various different paths, the one common element, and I'm not saying that this was what Brian Daboll was thinking, but there is a level of urgency, I think, with any coach when you draft a quarterback, specifically in the first round, that, you want to now see what you can do with, right, what a new toy is, basically. If you give a kid a toy, right, kid's not going to then throw the toy to the side, assuming that, it's a toy that they love. They're going to want to play with it, and they're going to want to play with it religiously. Okay, so it's no different. You give a quarterback coach, an offensive coordinator, a toy / a young, new, up-and-coming quarterback. More often than not, they want to get their hands on that player, and they want to see what they can create. And I think when you look at the turnover rate also in the National Football League, that's why a lot of first-rounders get on the field much sooner than the Patrick Mahomes school of thought or the Phillip Rivers school of thought or the Aaron Rodgers school of thought, where 2 to 3 years that will wait and develop. I'm a big proponent of that philosophy because I would rather see you take your time, but I'm also not naive, Matt. I understand how the NFL landscape works, that coaches, if they feel that there's a part of the skill set that the young quarterback offers that could maybe do something for the offense, the only way to tell whether or not that's going to happen is to put them on the field as opposed to playing the waiting game. So this is more of the evaluation of Jackson Dart's skill set, what he's shown behind closed doors, than anything you could talk about the common element of what college program they've come from or what somebody else is saying and this and that. This is what they've seen. And Dable's given even some breadcrumbs over the last few weeks about what has impressed them. I mean, I think one of the questions after the preseason ended, they were asking, remember, Matt, Brian Dable about, well, what are you going to do with Dart? What's going to be the process now? And he was also presented a question about what jumped out to him about the preseason and spoke very highly about his decision-making, getting rid of the football very quickly, utilizing athleticism, studying habits and so forth. So I just think a lot of that impressed them little by little as they went through the early stages of camp as well as the preseason into what they're seeing through the first 3 games of the regular season.
Yeah, look, he's only taken a handful of snaps in a regular season game. We are all acknowledging that. He has not done actually really anything in an actual game yet. Everything we've obviously seen has been training camp, preseason, behind the scenes, off the field, which is all great. But the coaching staff has made it very clear he has checked every single box so far. Every single box. He has been so impressive. I don't think there's more he could have done since he stepped foot in this building at the end of April to, give the coaching staff confidence that he's ready to go out there. And, I spent all offseason, I spent training camp, even the preseason when Jackson Dart was lighting up the preseason opponents. I was saying, in an ideal world, Jackson Dart barely plays this year. Or he plays at the very end of the season because the Giants are winning games behind Russell Wilson playing great. But we're 3 weeks in, and the Giants have yet to win a game. They're 0-3. And again, 2 of those games were single-digit points on offense. Clearly, a change was needed to something to get this going. It's not to just, quote-unquote, save the season. It's to simply just start winning football games. We all want the Giants to start winning football games. And I said this before, and I'll continue saying it. Clearly, the coaching staff believes that right now, Jackson Dart gives them the best chance to win football games. And at the end of the day, isn't that what all of us want? We want the Giants to start winning games. So again, there's no, and I'm seeing just some comments in the YouTube chat about, this matchup and stuff. Like, there was no good play. We said this before.
We talked about this earlier with the schedule.
The most logical place in terms of matchups, opponent matchups, would have been that little stretch after the bye week, because then you have Washington, Minnesota, which Brian Flores is a tough matchup, but then Raiders and Cowboys. But at the same time, you want to wait until the very last 4 games of the season to put the rookie out there when the offense is not performing up to the level that it should be? No, you can't wait that long. And it's not in terms of just saving the season. It's what is the point then of having the rookie continue to ride the bench for another few months if you feel that he's ready to go out there and lead the offense?
This also gives them an opportunity. You talked about you wait till week 15. Not to say that you hope anybody gets hurt, but over the toll of a season, guys are going to be lost. And I think you want to maybe try to evaluate Jackson Dart with as many of your key pieces healthy and on the field. Andrew Thomas is just coming back, so he'll have the benefit of the anchor at left tackle. Those are other things that you can't just dismiss. One of the worst things you could do for a rookie quarterback is throw him in there with an injury-plagued team and expect him all of a sudden to go crazy. So, that's another, I think, element in play. Let's head back to the lines. We got Chris in Colorado. Chris, welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live. What do you got for us?
Hey, how's it going, Lance and Matt? How you guys doing? It's actually Christian, but
Christian. Okay.
Christian.
Yes, we cut off a little bit of your name. Our apologies.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No,
Yes.
no worries. I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, I guess compared to all the other callers, I guess I'm a more of a optimistic Giants fan. You know, I'm actually excited about the move. I think it was definitely needed. You know, Giants obviously haven't been playing good, 0-3. Aside from the Dallas game, you know, our offense has been pretty much non-existent. You know, pretty much consists of, you know, downfield throws, chucking the ball downfield, or check downs, or, you know, nothing really in the middle of the field aside from like the Wandale catch, you know, towards the end of the game last week. But I just didn't think Russ had it anymore. You know, he's you know, making questionable throws. Like I said, he's kind of limited in his tools. You know, we kind of know what we're going to get out of Russell Wilson, you know, throughout his career. And you know, I think the change was needed. Jackson Dart, you know, gives us that element, you know, that you guys were you know, alluding to with the rushing ability. I think he's going to be you know, trying to attack the middle of the field more, which, like I said, I feel like we've been lacking in that department. You know, I haven't seen, you know, too many Malik Neighbors slants, you know, where he takes it, you know, 25 yards downfield. Haven't really seen, you know, those burst plays aside from the, you know, the deep balls, which we all knew that Russell was, you know, good at that. But, you know, I'm excited. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, I think it was needed. You know, I'm not, you know, thinking over here that Jackson is going to, you know, lead us to, you know, the playoffs and the Super Bowl. You know, that's not, you know, but it was needed. You know, he needs to get the growth. I think the reps are going to be super valuable, especially, you know, with the teams we are going to be playing. He's going to be seeing good defenses. You know, I know that scares a lot of people, but, you know, like you guys were saying, we got Andrew Thomas back. You know, offensive line, you know, I think has been playing, you know, pretty decent, pretty good. You know, we haven't been, you know, allowing a lot of sacks. It hasn't been, you know, our line giving up a bunch of sacks. It's been, you know, Russell Wilson escaping, you know, clean pockets is what I've been seeing. You know, I've seen a couple plays the other day where he's just running out of a clean pocket. And, you know, I don't think Jackson Dart is going to do that. You know, I think he's, you know, we've seen kind of in the preseason games that he's willing to stand in there and fire the ball downfield. And I think that's, you know, what we need. You know, we got Malik Neighbors. He's got a star receiver. You know, line, you know, is playing all right. You know, we got Scatterboo, you know, going out there, giving it his all, and you know, I think he's set up in a decent position, you know, to go out there and have a fair chance, you know, and show us what he's got. You know, that's all we can ask for.
Well,
right?
and that's how you got to look at it, Christian, and appreciate the phone call. I think, you know, what Matt and I were talking about is we could sit here and analyze the schedule, and I really don't think there's a stretch that is ideal, no matter how you spin it. So you have to look at it at the environment of the team, what's around him, and does it at least put him in a position where he can at least be successful and try to duplicate what he put forth in the preseason. Though, keep in mind, the last caller mentioned about Russell Wilson running out of maybe what appeared to be a clean pocket. You know, Dart has the capability where he can move out and run too. So, you know, doesn't mean he's going to be staying in the pocket himself. They may have some designed runs and so forth that can enable him to showcase his athleticism a little bit. Let's head back to the phone lines. We got Len in Columbia, Maryland. What's happening, Len?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
You're right.
Good. What's up, Len?
Yeah, all right. Well, tough loss on Sunday. Disappointing. Russell had a tough game. I mean, it was just not a good outing. I don't know whether the bad outing was worthy of a benching and bringing in Dart, but none of us should be surprised by the move. But maybe by the timing of the move, but none of us should be surprised. I mean, from the day the season ended on this show, we've been talking about, I mean, how many names of possible bridge quarterbacks came up in the first 3 months of the season, you know, of the off season, and how many quarterbacks did we talk about who we thought would be worthy of being drafted, who would take the job eventually away from the bridge quarterback. So I think it's been the plan all along, not just amongst the fans and people on this show, but I think in the front office and maybe all the way up to ownership, that this is how it was going to play out. And there was going to be a vet quarterback, and there was going to be a young quarterback, and eventually the young quarterback would get his chance. Lance, you touched on something at the beginning of the show, which I think was important, and also Joey, who just called, wanted to talk about it, but got diverted into the Wilson thing. Lance, I don't know if you were there on Sunday night. Matt, you were probably in the stadium. Were you in the stadium Matt?
Yeah, I'm in the press box for every home game.
Yeah. That was, the cheers for Dart were pretty half-hearted. Wasn't anything monumental. I'm not sure where Joey was coming from with that. The fans are down. That was a crowd that had no enthusiasm. That's the way I read it. It was there was very little juice in the stands. In fact, there was probably more juice for the in-between music, big boards showing things, Eli throwing passes into in the competition. I mean, there seemed to be more excitement about that than the game itself. It was really pretty lackluster, and I think this will be a little spark for the team, maybe, and a little spark in the stands. And the more you think about it, Lance, I think doing it at home is probably a good idea.
Sure. Well, I mean, once again, I don't think that was. I don't think that was the main reason behind it.
Listen, one of the things you haven't talked about today, and I think was pretty important with regard to last Sunday, except for the tight end, and his time will come, the draft pick for Doan. I mean, this draft class is getting more and more plays, and you know what? Not bad. I was been screaming for Darius Alexander to just get on the field. Come on, let's see what a 25-year-old rookie can do. Matt, you've probably heard me go in that direction a couple of weeks ago.
Once or twice, yeah.
And with Bo and now Dart and Carter and Scatterbo, we're getting guys out on the field. And Fredona's probably going to be there, pretty shortly too. So the draft class looks pretty good as well. There's no quick fix. This is a long-term project, longer than this year, but it's time. Got to get it started.
Well, listen, quarterbacks, and Len, we'll let you go on that note. Appreciate the phone call. If you look at the percentage in recent history, and I actually, Matt, before we wrap up, I've got a CBS Sports article, which I always reference. This was written in 2023. It's got a great breakdown. I may even tweet it out at some point, where it lists when first-round quarterbacks started. Whether it was right away, weeks 2 through 8, weeks 9 through 16, year 2, year 3, year 4. Yep. And I'm not going to read through every name, but, I mean, you could see my computer. This is the column on the left for right away, and look at how long it goes. And in terms of, and look at the other
names on that
and
list.
The other columns, notice, have ended, okay? And you're talking about the percentages point to when you draft a first-round quarterback, they get on the field sooner rather than later. I mean, that's just the reality of life in the National Football League. So, yes, to the last caller's point, not a stunning development, even based on the hypotheticals that we talked about throughout the offseason, that you had to at least anticipate we could get to this point. Maybe sooner than we anticipated, but still not a stunner that Jackson Dart is seeing the field as a rookie.
No, I mean, again, we see it across the NFL so often now. I mean, Cam Ward obviously was the number 1 pick, but it's been thrown right out there. And that's just the first example for this season, but we see it every single year with first-round picks getting thrown out there. And again, I said for months, in an ideal world, Jackson would barely play this season, and if so, not until the very end. But that was if everything had to go right for that situation to come to fruition. Obviously, the chances were more likely than not that Jackson would be getting in, and a lot sooner than, the end of the season. Again, I don't know week 4 if necessarily anyone was expecting it, but the Giants are 0-3, and the offense has just not, outside of the one Dallas game against 2 good defenses, the offense has just not been getting the job done. So clearly this move, an attempt at a spark plug, again, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but the coaching staff clearly believes that Jackson gives them the best chance to win. Obviously, we'll see what happens, but for me, I feel like this should be an exciting time. The future of the franchise is it's now. I mean, between Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, Abdul Carter, I mean, as Len just mentioned, Darius Alexander played the most snaps of the season, so the young guys are starting to take key roles, and I think that is a good thing and an exciting thing. Hopefully, that starts leading to more victories.
Well, we talked about if this franchise is going to move forward, it's going to take multiple draft classes getting on the field and showing their development. So the fact that now these guys are getting on the field a little bit quicker at least should help in terms of the development. But it's going to be the Dart and Scadaboo show, two key members of this year's draft class that are now going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, at least in terms of opportunities on the field. All right, that is going to wrap up Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. It is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants, here in our podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. We appreciate everybody tuning in, watching, listening, as today's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, part of the Giants platforms everywhere and Giants.com/podcast. Brian Dable will obviously speak to the media on Wednesday to confirm the news. According to multiple reports, Jackson Dart set to take over as the starter against the Chargers. For Matt Citak, I'm Lance Medow. Stay locked to Giants.com for all the latest, and we'll speak to you on Big Blue Kickoff right here on Wednesday. Have a good one.